Well, hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I trust that everybody is having a fantastic day. And so, good evening to each of you. Welcome to Marriage Monday. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Let me just say by introduction, I am Dr. Derren. This is, this is my wife and co-host, Lady Chalon. And tonight we really want to talk. We want to jump in. We received some very interesting statistics, and we have some friends that we've been talking to and working with, and interesting. So, have you ever thought about how your relationship would end up and how would things look if you and your spouse experienced miscarriage while you are working in your relationship? Remember, Marriage Monday is all about helping couples stay married. Remember, we've shared the statistics. The statistics are startling with the numbers of people that get married and they end their marriages in divorce. We had determined that we're not going to deal with that. And so what we found is 22% of persons who are married and who are trying to get pregnant. Most couples, there are very few couples that get married and say, "Look, with children, we're not dealing with it. We don't want children." Many people decide that they're gonna get married and they want to actually have kids. It's kind of a part of the dream. We're gonna get married. We're gonna buy a house, and we're going to spend time really building a family. And in many instances, that for some people, that is a great process. It's a wonderful process. There's no issues, there's no problems, no stresses. You try to get pregnant, you get pregnant, and then you move forward. But there is 40% of everybody that gets married. 40% of the people have some problems, have some issues, have some struggles. And so that's what we want to talk about tonight. How do we continue to move forward in our marriage? How do we continue to stay married even after dealing with miscarriage? Now, in the weeks to come, we're going to be to talk about, and we're going to bring some couples on and talk about the whole infertility kind of process and what happens. And the numbers are even crazier when we start talking about moving from miscarriage to just infertility. If you're not able to have a baby, what are the options? What do you do? How do you work through that process? How, from a mental health perspective, do you still maintain your mental health? And so we're going to talk about that in the weeks to come. But tonight, I really want us to talk about what happens when you go through the trauma of a miscarriage. You're excited, you're pregnant, you've announced to people that you're pregnant, and then things go wrong and you realize that what was a viable pregnancy is no longer viable. And what happens is stressful, it's traumatic, but you can make it through it. You can make it through it. Now, how can you tell people that? You really shouldn't tell people that. I can tell you that you will make it through miscarriage because you are looking at two people that made it through miscarriage. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. One of the things that Chalon and I do, we don't have any problem telling people our business, because if I tell your business, you'll be upset about it. But if I tell my business, can't nobody be upset. So we've already talked about it, and we decide that if it means that we have to put our stuff on Front Street to be a blessing and help somebody else, then we are willing to do that. And so we're going to talk a little bit about our journey. I'll start, and there will be different intersections where my wife will jump in, because we probably, she can kind of dot the I's and cross the T's a little better. But let me just pause and let me just tell you that you can make it. You can make it. Now, if you need to reach out to us, you can definitely reach out to us. And also, every single person that's watching now and watching the replay, I want you to go over to YouTube. In the next few weeks, YouTube is going to be our landing space. We're going to go live on YouTube. We're not going to be on Facebook anymore. We're going to go live on YouTube. And so Chalon is going to put the link to the YouTube page. I need you to go to the YouTube page. I need you to share the YouTube page. I need you to text people and tell them to subscribe. And so Chalon's putting it out. She actually already put it out in the link on Facebook. If you would do me a favor, go there and subscribe to the page. That's going to be the landing page. We will begin to go live from there starting in September. But let's just talk about, for those of you that's just joining us, thank you so much for joining. If you would go to the chat feature, you would see in chat that we put the link to our YouTube page. We are growing and building our YouTube audience, and I want you to be a part. We'll be posting articles there. We'll post all of Marriage Monday. You'll be able to go and look at the last 15 episodes. You'll be able to do that. But tonight, what we learned is that 22% of couples get divorced because they are not able to make it and manage through having a miscarriage. And so we're going to talk about that. So my wife and I got married. 2 years after we got married, we were pregnant for the first time. After we got pregnant, we were excited. We were overjoyed. We were happy that we were pregnant. And around week 25, 26, things got a little crazy. My wife ended up having to go into the hospital. We had our first baby at 31 weeks. He was a premature baby. He was born at 2 pounds, 15.7 ounces. Yeah, 2 pounds, like 15.7 ounces. He was a little teeny thing. At that time, the doctors told us, shut it down, tie the tubes. You know, my wife developed a condition, and they said it was not recommended that we ever tried to do that again. Now, let me just pause and tell you, I don't preach on this podcast, but I will tell you that because I'm telling our story, I had already been in the face of God. I had already prayed. The Lord had already told me 2 kids, so I'm standing on my 2. So when the people came to tell me something that was not in agreement with what I had already heard God say in prayer, I wasn't listening to it. And so I told them, no, thank you so much for your medical diagnosis. Right. But we're going with a greater power. And so first baby was fine. We're working toward our 2. See, sometimes you got to understand when all you have is a promise, that's all you have. And you got to, you got to work your promise. And so I don't care what anything else look like. When I have a promise and I'm clear where the promise came from, right, I'm pressing it. I'm moving forward. And so we were excited about DJ, and we decided, hey, let's move forward. Let's push forward. So we push forward. Speaking of him, I say his name and then he calls. So moving forward, we started working on baby number 2. Baby number 2, we're excited. We get pregnant, and we're really excited. We're planning. We're preparing, and things got a little crazy. And now my wife is going to pick it up. So we pregnant. Now, how long into pregnancy did we realize that something wasn't right?
I think it was around 8 weeks.
That was early. It was that early?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 10. Between 8 and 10 weeks. Just wasn't, actually, I was feeling fine. Just at a regular doctor's visit?
I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah. And checked for the heartbeat. There was no heartbeat. And so they sent us to, what did they send us? This is all a blur for me, really. All of the specific details. Of course, when you go through something traumatic like that, you don't necessarily want to remember all of the details. But I think it was around 8 to 10 weeks. They had sent me to see a high-risk doctor, and there was no heartbeat, and they confirmed it, and we ended up having to have a D&C. Yeah, so that was the first time.
So why is my shot not right? So traumatic experience. So we're trying to figure out what in the world happened. All of the feelings, all of the emotions come up because we're trying to figure out why us? Why are we at this place? We started replaying in our minds, is there anything that we did, should we not have done? And then let me throw out there that it's different. What? It's different. It's different. And the way that we process things from woman to man is very different.
Yeah.
And so the way my wife processed it was very different from the way that I processed it. I was still in a process of grieving, but I grieved differently than the way that she grieved, yet it was a loss. And so, I wanted to be there. I wanted to comfort my wife, didn't really know what to do. We had never been in that place before. And so I'm going to give you some steps, but I'm just trying to take you through our process. And so after the first time, remember, I already had a promise. The promise was we were going to have 2 babies. And so I got the first one. So then the second one, that pregnancy ends in miscarriage. We worked through that. It was trying. We worked through it. Excuse me. And then we get pregnant a second time. And this time we're on edge because all we're thinking about, every movement, everything was so everything that happened the first time, we're now starting to relive that. Even though we didn't necessarily want to relive it, we're having to relive it. And so now we're trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do differently this time to ensure that we're in a good place. And so making all of the appointments, did everything that we needed to do, all of the prenatal care, did all of that. But around how many weeks?
This one was earlier, so this was probably around 6 weeks.
6 weeks. We are experiencing some of the same stuff. We go to the hospital, and the nurses. Thank God for the nurses, because they're in there and they don't want to alarm us, because it's the doctor's responsibility to come and to tell you everything that's going on. And so he was like, well, I'm going to just grab the doctor just so that, we can just kind of make sure the doctor comes in. The doctor says, guys, I'm sorry, but I need to tell you that this is not a viable pregnancy. Can you imagine the devastation and the hurt to be at this place for the second time? And now we're questioning, did we hear God right? Did we make the right decision? Should we have just tied the tubes when they told us to? All of this stuff is coming. But remember, I still had a promise. Now, I want to tell you, because there will be some people that's watching that's trying to figure out, well, I had a promise too, and I tried 9 times. Well, you got to be real clear that, before you even enter, you got to just be clear. Right. The type of journey that you're on and your relationship with God. And are you operating according to the will of God for your life? And so we were convinced that we had a promise. So I want to pause for a minute so that my wife can now talk about what was she experiencing now, because I know that there will be persons watching that's in the middle of this process. You've experienced miscarriage 2, 3, some 4 times. Now you're just trying to, figure some stuff out. What process do we need to go by? What do we need to do? And so talk a little bit about what were you feeling at that time? What was happening?
Well, I think the natural part of you go through, anytime there's a loss, there is a process. You have to grieve that loss. I was angry. I was questioning my faith in God. And one of the things that really helped me, beside the support from Derren, was that I had people around me who had experienced the same thing. And one of the things someone really special to me told me was to not to allow other people to tell you how you should grieve. They have never been in, maybe the situation, they have never been in that place, but don't allow others to tell you how you should process this and how you should grieve. And so I really took that in, and I just allowed myself all of those feelings that I was feeling, the anger, the hurt. The day of the second miscarriage, I was in the doctor's office, and I remember a young lady, she was probably about 14 years old, came in and she was pregnant. And then, all of those thoughts go through your head. Like, here, this young lady, she's a baby herself, and she was actually pregnant with twins. And wow. I remember just sitting there thinking, like, okay, God, like here, this young lady, what's going to be the outcome for those two babies being raised by a teen mother who still is being mothered herself? Why I'm a married woman. I live by your word. I'm a believer, and I serve people. Why am I in this situation? And I had to be okay with the fact that I was actually questioning him. Not his love for me, but the process that he was taking me through. Not knowing that, when we're going through something, you really don't realize and you don't understand necessarily how God is going to use your experience to be a blessing to other people. And that is exactly where I am. I had a call a couple of like last month from a young lady who has experienced miscarriage, and she knew our story, and she called me so that she can get that support and from somebody who has experienced it as well. And so, God gets the glory out of all that we go through. So yeah.
So and from a man's perspective, we're just like, okay, well, it didn't work. Let's just try it again. And so we process it very differently. Not that we don't care, not that we weren't concerned. We process it very differently. While we gave birth to it, we didn't carry it. We don't know, and so there is an emotional attachment that women have that many men don't have. And so went through it the second time. But remember, I had a promise, and I was convinced that if God said it, he was going to do it. I don't care what it is. Sometimes you got to be real careful, because many of us want the prize, but we don't want to go down particular roads. See, sometimes the GPS will take you down a road that you really don't want to go down. And so we had to just decide whatever road we needed to go on, this is what we need to do. Now, there were times when we had to just talk, and Chalon said to me, I don't know if I can do this again. So when we got pregnant for the fourth time, we were very clear. She was saying, Derren, I just don't know. And I'm just praying for, in the backdrop, I'm praying for, I'm just like, all right, God, I know you said 2. So we get pregnant again for the fourth time. This is a period of 6 years now. So, 5 years. So, the question is never if God's going to come through. The question is always, how long are you willing to wait for him to come through? So I had to wait 5 years to see what he promised me come to pass. So we got pregnant for the fourth time. Darius is now here, and I wasn't going to be a fool. God told me to. And so after the fourth one was the second baby, fourth pregnancy, after we got Darius, I was just like, okay, we can shut it down now, because the will of God has been done for our lives. So why do I share that story with you? Because I want you to feel sorry for us? No, I share that story with you because I want you to understand that there is things that you need to do as you process. Studies, an article that we were reading showed that there were 7,700 people that was surveyed over a period of 15 years. And out of the 7,700 people, 22 of those couples that experienced miscarriage, they just couldn't do it. There was not a tight enough bond between them. They allowed the vicissitudes of life at that point to really push them further away from each other instead of drawing them closer to each other. So we're gonna give you some keys. If you are here, if you're kind of faced with this kind of situation, we're gonna give you some tools, and then we're gonna get out your way. So the first thing that we would recommend, as if you have experienced miscarriage 1, 2, 3, or 4, the first thing that we would encourage you to do is to share openly with one another. Be honest with each other about where it is that I am, what it is that I'm experiencing. I'm mad and frustrated, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be bothered. Give me 2 days to just kind of get myself together. But I articulate that with my spouse, because I want you to be real clear where it is that I am and what it is that you need at that time. So share openly with one another. Share your fears, your frustrations, share your concerns, share your anger, whatever you're feeling. It's all right to feel that way, but let me at least share it. All right. Number 2,
Number two, that you have to understand that you have different levels of attachment to the baby. That is normal, and accepting it is, and not accepting this as normal. Like, you're going to get attached, especially for women, because we're carrying the baby. The baby is in us. It is coming through us. There's a different type of an attachment that mothers have than fathers. Not to say that, that their attachment is any less, but, and then that your spouse shouldn't judge you for that attachment. And especially the longer you carry, the more the attachment is going to be. While every loss is, devastating, and it's a loss, but the longer you carry, that attachment is greater. And so your emotions and your feelings are going to be greater. Just, for the spouses, don't have unrealistic expectations of your wife when you guys are experiencing a loss. Don't think that don't have the expectation that she's going to bounce back in a month. Sometimes it takes longer, especially if, the loss was 4 or 5 months into the pregnancy. We had the miscarriages early on. Both of them were less than 12 weeks. So, just make sure you give your spouse that time and don't be judgmental about her process.
All right, that was good. Number 3, don't secretly superimpose your expectations. In other words, it really is okay. How don't tell them how they should feel and how they should act. And it's been 3 weeks now. You should be done with this. Like, don't do that. Give them the time that they need. It might take 3 months. It may take 4 months. It may take 5 months. But just be all right with it. Don't give a time limit on when you're supposed to come out of this, because sometimes you can say the wrong thing. Right. You still dealing with that. Like, that was 3 months ago. Like, you still on that. That is so wrong. You don't want to do that, because you don't want to come off as being mean and uncaring. Remember, we process things differently, but don't superimpose your expectations on your spouse, and your spouse won't do that for you. Take all of the time that you need. Right. Sometimes you might be a year in and something may trigger. A song may come on. You may see a little outfit. You might see Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse will just kind of set you off. It's all right. Give yourself that space to move it forward.
And then we got to remember to allow your spouse to see your grief. For women, of course, our societal norms, say that women are emotional. They're too emotional. Men don't cry. Men have a tendency to withhold their feelings, not show their feelings. And so one of the most important things is to allow your spouse to see you also grieve. I think that sometimes that has a lot to do with the reason, many couples don't stay together after they experience the loss of a baby. Because, I think sometimes the wife can feel like, well, you don't even care. Like, right. Because you're so absorbed in, maintaining that manly persona that you don't want to see people, you don't want people to see you going through or expressing those feelings. But if it's you and your wife, share that with them so that, we will feel like it's some kind of some normalcy to the process.
Yeah, that's good. All right. The next thing is nurture good communication principles. Practice active listening. We've talked about communication, and y'all see how, if you've been following us, you see time after time after time after time, communication comes up. So you got to practice some good communication principles. Let's talk on every Thursday. If we lost a baby on a Thursday, it's something about Thursdays. You get depressed on Wednesday. You don't really want to see a Thursday come. Then let's recreate what Thursday will mean for us. But let's talk about it. Let's just say, hey, I know the Thursdays are rough days, But you know what? We're not going to let it be rough anymore. We're going to run out. We're going to have us a good time. We're going to go walk around the mall. We're going to talk about it. And, you know, and I want to just kind of do some communication checkpoints. You know, let me just kind of check in with you at different times throughout the day. And when you tell me you're okay, sometimes just appreciate the support and be like, you know what? I really needed to hear your voice. I really needed, you know, that call from you at this very moment. Something was trying to creep up on me. But I'm so glad that, you know, that you called. Let's just have some communication checkpoints so that we can just kind of check in with each other, because ultimately we want to make sure that we good. See, when she's not good, I ain't all the way good. When I'm not all the way good, she ain't all the way good. Right. So we're going to have some communication checkpoints.
And I think part of that is also to own your own weaknesses and be willing to communicate that with your partner. Because, you know, the saying says that hurt people hurt people. So if you're hurting, but you're not allowing your spouse in to help you navigate through this process, then you would have a tendency to lash out and to, you know, be angry all the time. And then that ends up hurting them. And then it's just a never ending cycle. So be able to have those vulnerable conversations where, you know, that you're really feeling free enough to express how you really feel. So you guys can both move on together. And it goes both ways, not just for the female and not just for the male, but it has to be a dual kind of effort in order to get past this.
And then the next thing we need to make sure that we're asking each other how we can assist. How can I help you through this? What is it that I can do for you? What do you need? What do you need from me? How do you, you know, define for me the level of support that you need me to give? Because one of the things that we have learned is that sometimes I can assume that, you know, that my expectation is that you would do this. Right. Or I can't assume that you know anything. I need to just kind of ask the question, hey, what do you need from me? You know, how can I, you know, I'm here for you. But sometimes the way that I want to show up is not the way you need me to show up. Right. And so I need to show up for her during this time the way that she needs me to show up. It's kind of like if I just say I'm hungry, you know, I need to define, what does that really mean? Am I hungry for a steak, a baked potato, and a salad? Or do I just want a chicken sandwich? You know, so, you know, sometimes you will come to feed me, but are you feeding me what it is that I really want to be fed? Right. So I need to ask the question, how can I help you? What is it that I can do to assist you?
And then you have to be open and honest about what you need. You know, if you're not one of those people who need to be hugged and cuddled and
touched and kissed,
you need to say that. You know, you need to say that, because then that just kind of builds something in you, like, why are you touching me? And why are you?
I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be touched.
So that's where you need to be open to sharing exactly what you need.
The last thing we're going to share tonight, because I don't want to put you in overload, but the last thing we're going to share, hopefully, after you go through all of that, you recognize that there is a greater power, and that you all need to really draw near. So for us, you know, Jesus was where we had to call. We had to call on Jesus. And so we need to approach Jesus together. I don't want you just over there dealing with Jesus and I'm over here. No, let's approach our spirituality together. Let's connect one. Remember, the two become one. How can we stand except we agree? So we agree that we're going to come together and we're really going to kind of lay it down on the line, lay it down before God. And then one of the other things that I'll just say in closing, sometimes after you do all of these steps, you might still need some additional help. Sometimes people will need to go and they will have to get therapy. Do not feel bad if your mind seems like your mind is playing tricks on you. It just means that you need to go to the next level and just get some assistance. You need to go to therapy, you know, work through a process with a licensed therapist so that they can just kind of help you go to that next place.
Yep. That's what I was going to say.
You was going to say that? I just took the words right out your mouth? All right, good. All right, so listen, we're going to move into infertility. We have a guest panel coming. And so look for that. But do me a favor. If you check the chat, you will see the link to our YouTube page. It's a YouTube page. It's called Marriage Monday on YouTube. Now, there's several Marriage Mondays. I didn't realize that when we established this, but there's several Marriage Mondays page. So look for the picture that says Marriage Monday, the picture with Chalon and I. subscribe to that page, because in September, that's going to be our landing page. We won't be on Facebook anymore. We will be directing everybody to go over to our YouTube page. All right. I hope that this information tonight was a help to you. I hope it blessed you. Do me a favor, share this with somebody. Help somebody that has gone through miscarriage. Send this to them. If you send it to them and they're not able to get it, just send me a message. I will send the link out, because if you're not friends with us on Facebook, that's the reason why we want everybody to go to YouTube, because in our Facebook platform, if you're friends with us on Facebook, you will get this. But I've had people that's been trying to share and all of that. So we want you to do that. Then the last thing, I hope that you enjoyed our session 2 weeks ago with Goody Howard. Our personalized code to purchase supplies off of her website will come to an end in the next couple of weeks. So do me a favor, and just go to askgoody.com, and you can use marriage or marriage 10. Marriage for any of the classes, marriage 10 for any of the products, and we'll be good to go. So I trust that you had yourselves a great day today. Know that Chalon and I stand in agreement with you for the best of God to be upon your life. And if we can be of any assistance to you to help you process through any of this, you have only to reach out. We're here for you. All right. Thanks, guys. Have yourselves a fantastic week. Bye-bye.